For the next part, it's to do your detailed pencil line drawing. You're going to be drawing on a piece of your marker paper, your 11 by 14 inch marker paper, using your template that we made in week 2. After looking at all the thumbnails, you get a second chance now to work out some kinks. And as you know, for mine, I had several to work out. I went back and made mine more feminine. I drew this on the bus, so it's a little bit warped, but I had to go back, and I decided I had the wrong target audience, so I had to make my jug more female looking and more feminine, and my barbells more appropriate to that audience. And find a tagline. That's your next job, is to look for a tagline. So for mine, I decided that I would say something, you want something quick and simple, so mine is about flipping the top, tipping some spices in, and sipping for cheers to a more powerful you. So the whole idea that these spices, remember mine is Clubhouse Spices, that I'm ending up with some things that are really antioxidant and very powerful. When you look next time, you need to think about how the die cut is going to be made stable. And now we're entering in with these type, so we might have to add a square box or some sort of frame so that the die will be stable and include your type. So I ended up going from just shaping the outside of the figure to now making it a stable square. It doesn't have to be the same depth though as the box, because when these are made, they're two separate pieces. There's the header that has to be assembled on the tray. So they're two separate unique parts that are put together. It's sent as a flat box and it's put together in the store. I'm going to make this a solid piece. I can probably have a die cut in here, but it'd be more stable if I just went on the outside around the edge and around here. So these things have to be practical. Now you want to put your type in a place where it's going to stand out but not get in the way of your visual. Instead of putting the tagline here or any more message that I have, you could also put it down here. Another thing to consider is whether you're using the right kind of perspective to show off your idea. Would it be better as a 2-point perspective? And the second page in your handout, you'll see these are all photographed in two-point perspective because they've got things going on that stick out. This top one, for example, has a canopy that hangs out beyond the backboard of the header. And this part is what we're already using, so that's not a problem. But to show that, it was really helpful to do this in 2-point perspective. In 1 point, you'd just be looking at the front of those pieces and not really understanding what they are. This one as well, it's hard to see here, but this one has a panel that's coming this way. So you've got one panel. This is quite a complicated die, but you can see, so it's all probable. It can work. So the die comes here, but this part comes this way as well. This one too has somewhat of a little canopy that you wouldn't see in 1-point perspective. So you'd see that this is very important that they used two. This one, the Nutella, was important. They have the silhouette of the. This is such a common mouth-watering image. Anyone who likes this stuff to see the actual jar. So this was an important part of their design, and you really needed 2-point perspective to show that as well. And this one has 2 tiers, so it was important to show that in 2-point perspective. And then you see this is their die at the top. But you might have something you want to include, or on second thought, on your thumbnails, if you want to improve your thumbnails and find something better than what you came up with, by all means do it, so that you can come with something completely different and better next time. And this one, of course, we would have lost this whole thing without it being in 2-point. And we can also see that each one of these, this we would have registered in 1 point, that each of these crates is at a little bit different angle. But to see the truck, we'd only have seen it sideways, and this is a little more, this is better. The whole thing is a better setup to see it this way. So think about that. Now, any of the other ones on the second page, and in fact one, I have no idea what that product would be without the product sitting there. These now, these ones, they could work well as a 1 point. This one, in fact, actually looks better as a 1 point than it does as a 2 point, because you can see a little better what's going on here. The problem with it, though, is that you can't really even tell what it is. You wouldn't know with the product not being here what it is. And this one, I don't know what that is either without the product being there. Well, this one is great. You can see what it is. But it could have been done in 1 point and it would have been just as easy to see. And this one as well, you could have done that one in 1 point and it would have been okay. This one is great in 1 point. It's a little briefcase here with the product sitting inside, and it's for shrinking your pores apparently. So that's fitting nicely here in 1 point perspective. And then the die, it's hard to see, but the die is right there. Something you also might want to look into getting, especially now when we're starting into rendering, are some whiteout pens, putting in highlights and so on. This one is from Sharpie. It's white paint, it's white gouache paint. So when you use it, it's really quite opaque, and it works really well over top of anything, really. So you might want to invest in one of these. They don't have it at the bookstore, but you'd be able to buy it in any art store. It's invaluable, especially since we're coloring around type with the markers. It has a tendency to bleed, so this way you'd be able to clean up your type with this. It would really help. There are other brands as well. There's this jelly roll pen. This one's less reliable. I find it a little bit less reliable, but it's very accurate. It's tiny, little skinny lines. So, but if you can get it to work, it's pretty good. But as you see, it kind of skips a little bit. It's not that reliable, but it's a jelly roll pen. But this is a Sharpie water-based paint. And that's great. And there's this one as well. It's a Pilot pen. It's pretty good. It's not as opaque as the white paint. You might have to put a couple of layers, but it does work. It works pretty good. And then there are the old staples. This is a correction pen, a Pentel correction pen, and it'll correct pretty much anything. It goes on, it's very generous with its ink, so you can see it gives out quite a lot, and it's opaque like the marker. It's opaque like the paint. Also, for your outlining, this is great for marker paper. It's a Pentel sign pen, and they do have them downstairs. It's great because it doesn't bleed when you put marker over top of it, and it has a nice flow to it. It's a soft tip, it's a felt tip pen, and it's water-based. So when you put marker ink over top, it won't bleed. So that's a problem with working on marker paper. Probably the only problem really is that it will bleed if you rub over top of marker, black ink marker that's already there. So you're going to be needing a pen that won't bleed, or just avoid going over your lines. But for now, your job is to get a thumbnail that you like, and your new thumbnails you put on the back of next week's work. And any references, you're going to probably need some new references. I needed some. So I had to find a feminine hand with nail polish. I had to find a more feminine arm. And also, I'm thinking that these smoothies that I'm into now are going to have to be savory. So I had to find onions and tomatoes and kale and different things that were more in keeping with this kind of spice. When you go to look for your typefaces, if you're using Word, don't forget that even if it says here that your type will only go up to, say, 72. A lot of them only go up to 72. If you highlight it and put in your own number, you could go, say, 200, 400, whatever you want. It'll change to that size. A lot of people think that the last number that comes in the drop-down box is the last one, the last size you can use. It isn't. You can put in a number of your own, and it'll work. The kerning isn't great. There's big spaces, but when you trace it, you'll be tracing it. So when you do that, you can put it closer together. So you'll be needing to do that. So don't leave this till the night before. If you don't have a printer at home, you're going to need to come and size these at school, and you have to give it some time. When you come to school to do this, the copiers, I don't know if you've ever sized things on the copiers before, but it's not as easy as it sounds. So I have a video about how to use them, and I'll put that up on our YouTube channel so you can see that as well. So we just go over now your assignment sheet. Your pencil detailed line drawing is going to be on your marker paper. Now, when I'm choosing how to place it, obviously for mine, I need to turn it this way. If I turn it sideways, there's not going to be enough height. Mine has just grown and grown in height. So I'm going to have to turn my paper this way and put it's almost the right size now. I have to put it here and work from this size, and I'll fill it up as much as I can up here, and then draw my product down in front over here. You have an option now, remember, that to redraw this for 2-point perspective, if you have one of those things happening in yours, that it would look better in 2-point perspective. And we have some in-class exercises today so that you'll know how to do that after you've done them. You put your marker paper over top, you outline in pencil, and bring that next week. And on the back, you put your final thumbnail, your new references, any new references that you needed. And on the front is your pencil line drawing. Now, on the pencil line drawing, you'll have cleaned up your type, and you'll have traced that in pencil. You'll have your product drawn correctly. If it's up here, I'd have to draw that correctly. I'll have corrected my drawing for my figure and my things, and put my type down here, drawn my product correctly in the box. And I think I mentioned that this is always an option too for a tagline down at the bottom. Probably you want your most important message at the top, but you can also put additional material down here. That's what I mean by your template, was that first drawing we made. And make sure your pencil lines are dark enough, but don't make them so dark that you can't erase them later. And you need to use a ruler for all the parts that are straight. Your logo has to be prominent. That's something I haven't fixed up yet here. So I have to make sure I get my logo in. Maybe that goes up here at the top. That would work. I can put there's a red. It's getting taller. There's a red, and then there's the house. I have my little house. So I think that's how I'm going to do that. And the only thing that's going to stick out now is my arm. Okay, so don't forget that. And trace your logo so you get it accurate. And your tagline, you need to have one in order to support your concept. And trace it accurately from a Word document or some other sort of document. And draw the whole display, the header and the tray. Include product. And put your additional thumbnails on the back, and any reference photos on the back. And use your references for your details. Get it as close as you can. And put a black border around it. So now this black border that served us for the shade of the paper, you just put a black border around the edge of your paper. That will do. Okay. And your product standing in front, draw it in correct proportions so it looks like your product. And draw it in perspective correctly. Make sure you put the logo in perspective. Now, Greeking is just putting vertical lines for your type. So you put 2 lines above and below with your ruler, and you just, and a line here for the lowercase, and you just draw lines like that. And that's Greeking, and that'll be fine for any information on the product, but you do want to get your logo in. Also be looking at your concept development, that your concept and visuals are striking enough to take us through a whole campaign. So they've got to work for this tray. They've also got to work for our end cap. Remember, we have to have some kind of variation on it for our end cap. And how does your brand stand out as superior to the competitors? And your tagline supports your concept, and it's catchy. Don't forget the experience of using the product. So that's why I had you do that last week. And my tagline came directly from that experience. I remember we flipped the lid, we tipped some spices in, and then we're going to sip. So it came exactly from there. And you may find that you have something there in yours as well that you could use. So you're coming next week with pencil line drawing on the marker paper, and you're mounting that to a large piece of cartridge paper, mounted in the middle. And on the back will be your revised concept sketch, any other references that you needed to use to draw it. When it comes to working on your tray, you need now to turn these into your product. So when you're working on your detailed line drawing, you want to go in and put the label on and just put some identifiable shapes on it. It doesn't have to be photographic perfect, but we have to, in a simple form, see your product. Now, the reason we're coming with a detailed line drawing in pencil next week is so that I can look this over with you and make sure that everything is in place, the correct size and scale, everything is working before you ink it in and render it.